There is a version of you that already knows what must be done. It does not ask questions. It does not look for comfort. It does not wait for perfect conditions or emotional permission. It wakes up early, before the excuses even have time to form language, before doubt can stretch itself into your thoughts, before the world has a chance to convince you to stay the same. It moves without hesitation because hesitation is expensive. Every second spent thinking is a second stolen from becoming. It does not debate with comfort because comfort is not a guide. It is a trap disguised as safety. It does not negotiate with weakness because weakness never asks for control at once. It asks for delay. Slowly, politely, repeatedly. And then, there is the version you keep feeding. The one that waits for the right mood. The one that delays action until motivation feels convenient. The one that promises tomorrow like it owns time, as if tomorrow is guaranteed currency you can keep spending without consequence. It is softer, easier, familiar, and that is exactly why it survives. Because what you feed grows. Not suddenly, not loudly, but consistently, like erosion. Day by day, decision by decision, silence by silence. Miyamoto Musashi would not call that laziness. He would not reduce it to something harmless or ordinary. He would call it slow death. Because in his world, survival was not determined by intention, it was determined by action taken before fear could speak. A man who hesitated for even a moment did not lose later. He lost in that moment already. And hesitation, to Musashi, was not a flaw of personality. It was a signal that discipline had already been interrupted. A signal that the body was beginning to obey comfort instead of command. A signal that the war was no longer external, but internal. And in that war, there is no neutral ground. You are either training the stronger version or maintaining the weaker one. Every delay is a vote. Every excuse is reinforcement. Every later is a quiet surrender dressed as patience. And the longer you allow it to continue, the less resistance you feel against it. Until one day, you no longer choose hesitation. Hesitation chooses you. Welcome to the Cipher Phantom, where we don't motivate you. We don't comfort you. We don't decorate truth with soft language just to make it easier to swallow. We strip you, layer by layer, excuse by excuse, until only what is real is left standing. And today, we step into the harsh philosophy of Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated swordsman who fought over 60 duels and never lost. But understand this clearly. Musashi was not just fighting men across the battlefield. He was not simply reacting to opponents in moments of steel and speed. He was fighting something far more dangerous. Weakness itself. The invisible enemy that does not stand in front of you, but inside you. The part that hesitates when action is required. The part that negotiates when discipline is demanded. The part that chooses comfort and calls it logic. And in his eyes, laziness was never harmless. It was not a personality trait. It was not a phase. It was not something to be laughed off or postponed. It was surrender, wearing soft clothes. A quiet retreat disguised as normal life. A defeat that does not announce itself with chaos, but with delay. So if you came here for inspiration, leave that expectation behind. This is not inspiration. This is not motivation designed to make you feel better about yourself for a few minutes. This is exposure. Chapter 1. Laziness is not rest. It is escape. Musashi understood something most men refuse to accept. Not because it is hidden, but because it is uncomfortable to admit. Laziness is not about doing nothing. It is not simply lying down, resting, or taking a break. Laziness is about avoiding discomfort. It is the quiet decision to step away from resistance, to avoid pressure, to avoid effort, to avoid anything that demands more than what feels easy in the moment. Every time you choose delay over discipline, you are not resting. You are escaping. Escaping effort that would shape you. Escaping pressure that would sharpen you. Escaping the version of you that demands more than your current habits are willing to give. And the cruel truth is this. What you avoid does not disappear. It does not fade. It does not wait patiently. It does not forgive neglect. It grows stronger in your absence. While you rest, your discipline weakens. Not dramatically, but quietly, like muscle left unused. While you scroll, your potential decays. Not instantly, but gradually, like something left to rot in silence. While you postpone, your future does not pause with you, it shifts without you. It collapses in places you cannot yet see, but will one day feel. and by the time you notice it, the damage will already have structure. Musashi did not train when he felt like it. He did not wait for motivation to arrive like a messenger of permission. He trained because waiting for feeling ready was not preparation. It was surrender disguised as patience. And in his philosophy, that single delay, the one you call harmless, was already the beginning of defeat. Chapter 2. A weak man negotiates with himself. Musashi believed the battlefield does not begin when blades are drawn. It begins long before that. It begins in silence, in thought, in the private moments where no one is watching except you. And in that space, the real war is decided. The weak man does not lose when the fight starts. He loses long before action begins. Not because he is attacked, but because he hesitates internally, repeatedly, until hesitation becomes identity. He says, "I'll start tomorrow. I just need more motivation. I'm not in the right mood right now. I'll do it when things feel easier." But Musashi would not hear discipline in those words. He would not see planning. He would not see patience. He would see negotiation. A man sitting at the table with his own weakness, trying to make peace with it instead of defeating it. And in Musashi's philosophy, that is already loss. Because every excuse is a treaty with weakness. A silent agreement that says, you are allowed to delay growth in exchange for temporary comfort. And every treaty has a price. The price is not just time. It is not just energy. It is your potential, paid in installments you do not notice until it is gone. Your body does not respect intention. It does not respond to what you meant. It does not change because you explained yourself well. Your life does not respond to promises. It only responds to repetition, to movement, to proof. Only action leaves an imprint strong enough to survive your excuses. And if your life is not changing, it is not because you lack information. It is not because you haven't figured it out yet. It is not because you are waiting for the right system. It is because you keep agreeing with your weaker self, again and again, until agreement becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. Chapter 3. Discipline is war against yourself. Musashi lived in a world where hesitation was not an inconvenience. It was not a mistake you could correct later. It was death, a single pause, a single moment of doubt, a single fracture in focus, and everything was over. So he did something most people never truly learn to do. He removed hesitation from his life entirely, not through motivation, not through inspiration, not through emotional intensity that comes and goes like weather, but through repetition, endless, deliberate repetition until action stopped requiring permission. He trained so often that movement became instinct, not something he prepared for, not something he debated, not something he negotiated with himself over. It simply happened. No internal argument, no delay disguised as thinking, no emotional waiting room where decisions are postponed until comfort arrives. Because discipline, in Musashi's understanding, is not a mood you enter. It is a structure you build until it replaces choice itself. And the modern man misunderstands this completely. He waits to feel ready. He waits for clarity. He waits for confidence to appear before he moves. But Musashi did the opposite. He acted until readiness became irrelevant. Readiness was not the starting point. It was the byproduct of action repeated enough times that doubt no longer had authority. He did not ask himself, do I feel like it? Because feeling is unstable. Feeling changes. Feeling lies. He asked something colder, more direct, more final. What must be done? And once the answer appeared, he did it before thought could interfere, before hesitation could argue, before emotion could resist, before weakness could negotiate another delay. That is the line between strength and weakness. Not talent, not intelligence, not circumstance, but obedience to action. The ability to move before your mind creates excuses, and to continue moving until excuses no longer survive. Chapter 4. Comfort is the most dangerous enemy. Musashi did not fear strong opponents. He did not fear skilled swordsmen. He did not fear chaos, conflict, or the uncertainty of battle. He feared something far quieter, far more invisible. Comfort. Because comfort does not destroy a man quickly. It does not arrive like a strike. It does not announce itself like failure. It does not collapse your life in a single moment. It dissolves you slowly, silently, gradually, without resistance. One delay becomes a habit. Not immediately, but over time, through repetition without awareness. One excuse becomes a lifestyle. Something you no longer question, because it begins to feel normal. One comfortable choice becomes an identity. And once it becomes identity, you stop seeing it as a choice at all. And before you realize it, you are no longer becoming anything. You are no longer building, no longer sharpening, no longer moving toward a stronger version of yourself. You are only maintaining stagnation, a stable life that feels safe, but produces nothing beyond itself. Musashi lived in discomfort on purpose, not because suffering was meaningful in itself, not because pain was a virtue to be worshipped, but because he understood something sharper than comfort. Comfort creates illusion. It convinces you that time is unlimited. It convinces you that progress is happening when it is not. It convinces you that thinking about change is the same as changing. And illusion is the enemy of mastery. So he chose the opposite path. Cold nights that stripped away softness. Hunger that removed distraction. Isolation that forced confrontation with the self. Endless training that left no room for fantasy. Not to suffer, but to stay awake. Because a man in comfort does not see himself clearly. And a man who cannot see himself clearly cannot correct himself. And that is where Musashi drew the line. Between a life that feels easy and a life that is actually real. Chapter 5. The man who acts does not need motivation. Musashi never built his life around inspiration. He never structured discipline around emotional highs. He never depended on moments of clarity, motivation, or internal excitement to determine his actions. He built his life around execution. Because motivation is unstable by nature. It rises without warning. It collapses without permission. It disappears the moment life becomes difficult enough to require it most. It cannot be trusted. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be relied upon when it matters. But action is different. Action does not depend on mood. It does not ask for approval. It does not wait for emotional alignment. Action builds momentum. And momentum is something far more powerful than motivation. Because momentum does not ask how you feel. It carries you past how you feel. It turns repetition into identity and effort into direction. And over time, momentum replaces motivation entirely. The weak man waits to feel strong before he begins. He waits for confidence to arrive before he moves. He waits for certainty before he commits. But the disciplined man does the opposite. He acts until strength appears. He moves until clarity forms. He continues until resistance no longer has authority. That is the reversal Musashi lived by. Not, I will act when I am ready, but something far more demanding, far less forgiving, far more real. I act until I become ready. And that single shift in thinking changes everything. Because readiness is not a prerequisite in that philosophy. It is the outcome of repetition. And that difference separates warriors from spectators. One waits for permission from feeling. The other builds a life where feeling no longer decides anything. So understand this clearly. You are not stuck because life is uniquely difficult. Difficult lives exist, yes, but difficulty alone does not explain paralysis. You are stuck because hesitation has become familiar. It has been repeated so often that it no longer feels like a decision. It feels like your default setting. Musashi's message was never soft. It was not designed to comfort the listener or soften the weight of truth. It was designed to confront. Directly. Without distortion. Without emotional cushioning. Because a man who keeps choosing ease will never know strength. Not in theory. Not in imagination. Not in potential. Only in absence. And a man who keeps avoiding discomfort will never meet his potential. Not because potential is missing, but because it requires resistance to be revealed. There is no hidden version of you waiting somewhere beyond your current life. No future self that magically appears when conditions align perfectly. No transformation that happens without repetition. There is only repetition. What you repeat in thought, in action, in avoidance, in delay, slowly becomes structure. And structure becomes identity. And what you become is not decided in a single moment of motivation or failure. It is decided in what you repeatedly allow yourself to do without resistance. And that is the part most people refuse to accept. What you repeat becomes you. If you recognized yourself in this message, do not look away. Do not postpone the change again. Start with one action today that you have been avoiding. Not tomorrow. Not later. Today. And if you want more brutal philosophy that strips excuses and rebuilds discipline from the ground up, stay with the Cipher Phantom. Because comfort speaks softly, but truth never whispers.